to A Taste of Old Colony History, where we try making historic recipes and local favorites right here in our home kitchens. Now, the recipes this time might sound like a British invasion, but I promise we're keeping it local with an Old Colony twist. So, around here, when the summer months start rolling in, strawberries get to their peak ripeness, and they're super delicious. A number of Old Colony towns celebrate this time of year with strawberry festivals, and one of those towns is Dighton. So our recipe for strawberry jam comes from a Dighton cookbook that's currently on display in our exhibit, We Are What We Eat. We'll pair our strawberry jam with a classic scone recipe, and we'll top that all off with some homemade clotted cream. Let's get cooking. All right, so we're gonna start the process of making our strawberry jam. And we only need a few simple things. We need 2 quarts or 8 cups of strawberries, and then an equal amount or scant amount of sugar. So 8 scant cups of sugar. First, I've washed and dried the strawberries. Next, I'm going to hull them, put them into the bowl, mix them up with that sugar, and let it all macerate for about an hour or 2. We'll take it out of the fridge, and then we will start making the jam on the stove. Easy trick to hulling is to take your paring knife and poke down and just go all the way around the stem. I don't actually move the knife, I rotate the berry to get that center out. Pop that out, and you have perfect strawberry. I'm gonna slice these the big ones into quarters, the little ones I'll probably cut in half. So here we have 2 quarts of hulled and cut strawberries that I'm going to add 8 scant cups of sugar to, so they don't need to be overflowing. 16 scant half cups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right. Strawberries and sugar. Give this a toss. And then it's gonna go in the fridge, like I said, for an hour or 2, just to start to break those strawberries down. And then it's gonna boil on the stove until it's jam. It's a lot of sugar. Into the fridge. So the strawberries were with the sugar in the fridge for an hour. Now I'm going to transfer it into our large pot, and these are going to boil for 10 minutes, and we're going to stir it the whole time. Just kind of stir and mash until it all cooks down. So that's 10 minutes of boiling. Turn the heat off
I'm just gonna keep stirring to mash up any of those big pieces of strawberries we have left. Though the recipe didn't say to cut them up, but if you have like a real potato masher or something, you might be better off. Otherwise, I would say you could cut them up a little smaller to help with that process. Now that we've removed this from the heat, we are going to just cover it up, allow it to cool to room temperature, and then we'll transfer it into some jars for storage.
All right, so our jam has cooled. It's very thick. Still has some really nice pieces of strawberry all throughout. So they mashed down well, but you can still see them, which is one of the things that I really like about jam. You can see the fruit, and very sweet, but like super concentrated strawberries. It's exactly what you want from a jam. I'm glad we're pairing this with plain scones because I think this has all the sweetness we'll need. But we'll get it into our jars. These aren't canning jars, but I'm not going to seal them. I'm just going to store them that way. But you can can these and store them or put them in the fridge if you're going to use it right away. But this does make a lot of jam, so hopefully your friends also like strawberry jam. I got my jars cleaned up. They're ready to go in the refrigerator until we're ready to pair them with our scones and clotted cream or make some PB&Js. To make clotted cream, you really only need 3 things: heavy cream, a baking dish, and an oven. We're gonna pour 16 ounces of heavy whipping cream into our baking dish. You want it shallow and wide so that the cream has a wide surface area. I'm going to preheat my oven to 180 degrees. Slow and slow. So the cream will go in the oven for 12 hours. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon right now, so I'll be taking this out at 1 o'clock in the morning. So when I take this out of the oven, it'll cool to room temperature, and then I will put it in the refrigerator for another 12 hours. It should have formed a thick skin, so that will be our cream. Okay, so clotted cream round 2 coming out of the oven. It's been in for 12 hours. Got a nice skin formed, got the liquid underneath. Let this cool on the counter for a while, then it'll go in the fridge for about 8 to 12 hours, and then we will try eating our clotted cream. Here are the ingredients we need to make our classic scone recipe. It's all-purpose flour, whole wheat flour, baking powder, baking soda, salt, cold butter, granulated sugar, and buttermilk. Here are the tools for our scones. We'll need a few sizes of measuring spoons, a wet and a dry measure, a bowl to mix all our ingredients in, a pastry blender if you have one. You can also use your fingers for that step. And we'll also need a rolling pin, some extra flour in that bowl in the back, a metal spatula or a bench scraper, something to help us cut apart our scones, and then a baking sheet to cook them on. Okay, so to make our scones, our first step is to get our oven nice and hot. We're going to preheat it to 500 degrees to begin with. So, Get it all the way up there. Once the scones go in, we are going to drop that temperature down a little bit, but this gets it cranking hot for us. So we're going to put together our dry ingredients first. We need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. We also need 1 cup of whole wheat flour, a tablespoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of baking soda, 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Finally, we need 2 tablespoons of sugar. Get those blended together. Now we need to get that stick of butter. I'm gonna dice it up. It's in the freezer, it's super cold, and we're gonna start working that into our dry ingredients. Now that we've got all our bits of very cold butter into our dry ingredients, I'm going to use my pastry blender. You can also use your fingertips to mix this in until it comes together a little bit, but it's unevenly crumbly. Nice uneven crumble here, which is what we're looking for. Stop touching it, and we'll add our buttermilk next. The final ingredient for our scones is 1 cup of buttermilk. Mix this until it's just combined. It's gonna look rough and shaggy. That's what we want. And I'm just trying not to handle it too much so we don't melt that butter, because we want that butter to stay. Just until it's not totally dry anymore. Got this nice shaggy dough here. You can still see those big clumps of butter. It's gonna make some really lovely texture in our scones. We're gonna knead it just a very little bit, about 10 times. I'm gonna get some flour in my hands, and then we're going to roll it out and cut our pieces. We want to knead this on a well-floured board. We're going to flour the board, we're going to flour our hands. Turn this out carefully. So we're only going to work it a very little bit. Just going to knead it so it forms together about 10 times. That was 1, 2, 3. And our oven's ready. That's 4, 5, 6, 7. Try to get this. 8, 9, and 10. All right, let me get this. We're gonna roll this out so it's a more even circle, and then we're gonna cut it. So now we're gonna cut our dough in half. I use my spatula just to go right down the middle. It's also what we'll use when we actually cut these scones. And we're gonna roll this out. So now we're going to take either a metal spatula or a bench scraper or a really good knife. You want to flour it before you dip it in, because we're going to make straight cuts to cut this into 6 wedges. I think I'm going to cut it kind of like a pizza. Go half first. First 6 wedges, and we're going to transfer them over onto our baking sheet, which you can either grease or use a little bit of parchment paper so nothing sticks.
floury again. So before we put our scones into the oven, we're going to reduce our temperature to 450. And they need 13 to 15 minutes. I'm going to set my timer for 13 and we'll check on them. We want them to be a nice golden brown. So while our scones are in the oven, we are going to work on our clotted cream. So it was in the refrigerator for 12 hours. Remember, it baked at 180 last night overnight for 12 hours. So our next step is to scrape off this thickened top layer, and that we're gonna mix and mix and mix until it's nice and smooth and creamy, and then we'll top our scones with it. So we want to make sure we just get the thick part and leave the liquid behind. We'll discard the liquid. Let's see if we can get into this. Pull it away from the edge. Leave that liquid behind. We just want the thickened stuff off the top. Liquid we will discard. So it's going to just go right in the sink. I'm going to try with a whisk to break down that thickened skin and see if we can turn this into a nice creamy topping for our scones. Ooh. We're gonna check on our scones. Give them one more minute. Nice golden brown, puffed up really beautifully. Let them cool down a little bit while we continue to work on our clotted cream. So it's not super smooth, and it's not really like whipped cream. It's more like a whipped cream frosting. It's a little thicker, but it looks, we'll see. It's really thick, obviously. It's got some chunks in it. It's not super smooth, but let's taste it. It's good. It tastes buttery, a little bit sweet actually. I think it's gonna go great on our scones. It doesn't have the smoothest texture. There's still some little bits of that skin. But overall I like it, and that'll probably hide when we top it with the actual scones. So let's try eating. I'm ready. All right, our scones have cooled as long as I can stand it. So we're gonna do our taste test. I'm gonna try the scone by itself first, and then I'm gonna add our toppings one at a time. So I'm gonna break this up into some pieces so I can try the different parts of it. So it's still steamy with these beautiful layers. It comes apart super easily. Oh, they're so good. The texture is really nice. They're like soft, but a little bit chewy. Got the nice texture on the outside. These are delicious. And we didn't even add anything to them. They don't have any flavoring in them. and they're perfect, just like this. So now, let's try our toppings. My jam thickened up like crazy. I can barely get it out. So this is the jam we made the other day. Put a little bit, super thick, very sticky jam. The jam is so sweet and it pairs perfectly with the scones, since they only have 2 tablespoons of sugar in all of these. So really, the jam can shine. It's super tasty together. Really get that strawberry flavor. Do a little bit of just the clotted cream, and then we'll try both. It's basically like fancy butter, I think. It's really good. Having these just fresh out of the oven, so they're hot, but the clotted cream is nice and cool. Delicious. Oh wow. Alright. Now we're gonna do a big smear of this. Nice big piece of strawberry on top. For the most perfect bite. It was a big bite. The way it all works together it's beautiful. So good. I want to eat the rest of this. This is so tasty. Any part of this is good on its own, but when all 3 come together, it's just beautiful. So I have one more surprise. So I went to a little local shop that sells British goods, and I was looking for clotted cream. They were out of stock of clotted cream, so I got the double cream, which I was told is the same thing, but it's a lower milk fat. But it essentially works in the same way, and it's eaten in the same way. So that just popped. It released from the edge of the glass. And I'm going to compare this. It looks very similar. Obviously, it's a lot smoother than our clotted cream. Like I said, mine was a little chunky. Let's try. This looks more like cream cheese or butter. Still looks like butter to me. It tastes very similar. It's salty. It has some salt to it, but I think I prefer mine actually. There you go. If you can't make your own clotted cream, store-bought's fine.